everybody, and welcome to the first episode of K9TV. Very excited. Tonight we are going through the conversation of dealing with dogs and resource, or in particular food guarding. So that's food guarding is when your dog starts guarding or growling or becoming really stiff anytime you might approach it, particularly when it's eating. It may have a bone, a ball or a toy or something like that. So guys, just while we give it a few minutes while everyone starts to join in, say hi guys and let us know where you're tuning in from. We've had great feedback from all over, which is fantastic. We've had comments from New Zealand, kia ora, and from the US as well. So by all means, say hello, let us know where you're from. We've got a couple of questions that have come through, all been great questions, so we certainly, I'll be going through those as well. And if you have any questions, I will do my best to get through them all. It's been a bit of a wet week here in Melbourne, which isn't always the best fun to train your dogs, but it's always a good excuse to get out and start working with them and, letting them know that it's great fun playing with them. So, all right, guys, so I might just get straight into it. Hopefully, for those of you that are watching, you've seen the dog or the video with the dog in it that has actually inspired my kind of passion when it comes to dogs that resource guard. His name's Bass. For those of you that have worked with me long enough, you'll know that any dog that I have the opportunity to name, and I named Bass, there's always a story behind it. And Bass came into a shelter that I was working at, and unfortunately his circumstances prior to coming into the care of the shelter were a bit shoddy, to say the least. I think that's a very polite way to put it. So we had no history of his background. He came into the shelter rather emaciated, and due to his situation, his social, his ability to be approached in the yard that he was, found in, he wasn't overly accepting of that. So the poor bugger was brought in on a catch pole, and not an overly happy dog at all. When I arrived to work the day after he came in, he came in, some ridiculous hour of the morning or whatnot. I got this note on my desk, goes, "Kat, you need to go and see this dog." So I think I was about 4 or 5 kennels back from the particular kennel he was in, and he wasn't very happy. He knew I was approaching. He had no visual contact with me at that point, but he was throwing a nice little tanty, telling me that I was not welcome. Anyway, a long story short, I got the privilege of being able to name him, and I named him Bass. And just in case there's some little ears listening, I named him Bass, and I guess his surname was Tard. So hopefully you can figure that out, because that's exactly what I thought of his previous owners and the way that they were treating him. So he got the nickname of Bass, and I love him very, very much. And some of you that have done my Training with Clarity seminars would certainly have heard me talk about Bass and the experience that both he and I went through. It was pretty cool, very devastating and hard and challenging, but I very much enjoyed working with him, and he was a great dog and responded to the training absolutely fantastically. If by chance you haven't seen the video with myself working with Bass, it is me. I had dark hair there. If you haven't seen the video with me working with Bass, I do suggest, after watching this live session today, to go back and watch it. We've certainly linked it in with a lot of the posts that have gone through Facebook. It's worth watching and seeing the transformation. He was quite aggressive, not only, as I was saying before, when I was approaching his particular kennel or run, but also even once I was finally able to enter into his kennel and his run, and he was not happy, in the sense he wasn't prepared, I should say is a better description. He wasn't prepared for interaction at that point. So you'll see how gradual my approach was. Hi Robbo, thank you. Sorry I didn't introduce myself. I've gone straight into the conversation. That's how excited I am. My name's Kat. Ironic, I know, being a dog trainer, and I come from the Canine Company, obviously. So sorry. Thank you for pointing that out, Robbo. You're a legend. Rita, you're a legend. Thank you so much for the best trainers. So In regards to his behaviour, you'll see right at the very beginning, he wasn't comfortable in regards to having any physical contact. And when he actually went through to his temp test, once I'd done quite a bit of work with him, it'd been a number of days because there were legal proceedings with it. It was about 30 days approximately until he was able to set a Kylie, watch me set a footy, of course. He set his temp test and he was going super well until it came to his the issues around the food. So at the particular shelter I was working at that point, they would put the food bowl down on the ground for the dogs to approach, and then they would get the dummy hand and, you know, approach the dog, poke the dog, touch the dog, and stick it into the bowl as you know, as the dog was eating. Excuse me, I'm getting rather warm in here. The heater's on and I'm cooking. I'm just opening the curtain, or the window, I should say. So he epically failed that. He quite enthusiastically took a bit of a chunk out of that hand. Now, of course, if that was you know, your hand or somebody else's hand, that is not an ideal approach at all. So immediately we went into some training and some counter conditioning, which I'll go through and explain for you guys as well. And the best thing was Bass facilitated a heck load of learning for not only the volunteers within the shelter, other staff members in the shelter. I will certainly say that I took a lot of learning away from working with him as well. And still to this day, I can't recall how many years, maybe 3.5, maybe 4 years since I was working with Bass. And still to this day, his video, or the video that I took with him in his progress over 7 days is still shared quite widely. So I'm very proud of that and love the beast forever. So guys, the first thing that I want to cover off in regards to food guarding is we need to understand when we start to work with dogs is, contrary to the belief of many people, is just when they're starting to guard something doesn't necessarily mean that we need to come in, you know, if you would, heavy-handedly, or, you know, teach them a lesson or show them who's the dominant one or the leader or anything along those lines. What we want to be able to do is consider, and this is my absolute passion when it comes to working with dogs, is see it from their point of view. What is their mindset? What is it that they're experiencing at that point of time? So I always sit there and say, you know, in regards to, you know, resource guarding, so in particular, I am talking about food, but it may be about a ball or a toy or something like that. What is your dog's belief system at that point? What is their perception? So if your dog is sitting there and they've got their food bowl and they're starting to covet it and guard it and feel as though, you know, you're going to take it from them, that's what we need to start to really get into the nitty-gritty of it. That's their belief. You know, if their perception is that you're going to take it off it, that's the only reason that any species starts to covet something, because they think there's going to be some sort of loss. The tricky thing with the old school, the old way of thinking in regards to food guarding or you know, teaching our dogs that you know, we're the dominant one, or the alpha, if you would, is a lot of the times we actually provide the evidence for that belief system or perception. And evidence is another word that I love using because I think it makes a lot of sense for people. So first things first, I always sit there and try to understand and ascertain what is the belief system of the dog, what is it that they're experiencing, what is their perception. Now, if I provide the evidence that backs up their belief and their perception of what's going to happen, well, that starts to, you know, snowball and take the training session in a way that I don't want it to go. So if as I said, the dog thinks that you're going to take it off them, the last thing that I want to do at that particular point, and this is a generalized kind of approach to dog training. Please remember, each dog is different. I always use the analogy, you've got to find the shoe that fits. If you have a pet dog at home and you're unsure of what's going on, guys, there are some wonderful, wonderful dog trainers out there. We spend years and years and years researching, practicing, and refining the art. So please, have some common sense, and if you need the help, just ask for it. There are some friggin' awesome people out there that just want to see the betterment of the dog and have you enjoy it as well. So please make sure that you ask for help. So what we want to do is understand what their belief and their perception is, and not provide evidence for them at that point, so they sit there and go, I knew you were going to do that. So that's why I refer to it as the evidence. So if you look at your dog, and quite often I use the analogy that they're a DA, a district attorney. So if your dog's out there trying to collect every iota, every little bit of evidence to say, I knew you were going to do that, you're a bugger, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. All you're doing there is reinforcing their belief. Now, the tricky thing is, with the old school way of thinking, if you come in heavy-handedly, you can certainly suppress the physical attributes and the physical display of behavior. So maybe the dog won't growl anymore. Maybe they will allow you to take the bowl or the ball away from them. But what is it that they're experiencing at that particular point in time? Because if you suppress their expression, you could potentially get yourself into a world of trouble coming down the track, because it's only a matter of time. If you look at the way that we as people deal with things, we can only take so much, and then eventually we might just kind of crack that little bit. So to me, the most important thing is that the headspace, the mindset of the dog. So if we look at our dogs as though they're like a district attorney, and they're going around collecting evidence, and all they're trying to do is take you straight to the Supreme Court, and they're bringing in capital punishment, and they're out to get you if you give them one little iota of evidence. What we want to do is sit there and think, right, if your dog sits there and thinks that you're trying to take the food off them, and you'll see this in the video with Bass, okay? If your dog sits there and thinks you're trying to take the food off them, we want to give them a completely different belief system. And the way that we do that in the dog training world, behavioral, science, it's called counter conditioning, which is basically just flipping their perception of what's actually going on, changing their perception, their belief. And we try to do that in the least invasive way. So it's minimally stressful. The last thing we want for our dog to do is suffer stress. Mind you, the tricky thing is if they're already guarding their food or their toy, they're coveting it, and they think it's that it's scarce and you're going to take it off them, there's already that element of stress. So we certainly need to be aware of that. If you have a look at that video, you'll notice what I do, and it's been mentioned in some of the questions that I will get to, that when I put Bass's food bowl down, it's got what I would call a low-level reward in it. So Bass, because of his previous history, he came into the shelter quite emaciated. He was underweight, and his drive for food was pretty high, as you could imagine. So what I did was I was putting lower value food into his food bowl. So when I talk about lower value food, we've all got a value of food. And for anyone that has heard this conversation between Brent and myself as the example that we use quite often, Brent loves Turkish Delight, and I think they're disgusting. I'm sorry, I just cannot even fathom it. Even if I was to sit there and try and scrape the chocolate off the Turkish Delight, yeah, it's never ever going to happen. So when we talk about reward value, that is something that's highly rewarding for him because he really enjoys it. But I think they're feral and disgusting. Give me a Ferrero Rocher any day, or Lindt chocolate, for example. So we want to put something of lower value into the food bowl. So Bass doesn't see that at the particular time. I see little laughing faces going along. Bass doesn't see what I was trying to achieve, is that Bass, obviously because he's been emaciated, doesn't see massive value in the food bowl. However, I, on the outside, have something of higher value. So I always try to approach a dog that has... I always try to approach a dog in this situation with something that's fresh, be it steak, chicken, hot dog, cheese. It doesn't matter as long as it's fresh, moist, and easy to eat. A lot of the times your dogs will find that at a higher value of food. Excuse me, guys, I'm just going to have a sip of water. I should say it's tea. So what we want to do And again, reflecting back onto the video, is Bass's food bowl goes down. It's just got the dry food in. And because I don't want to provide him with any evidence that I'm going to be taking the food off him, what I do is actually I start tossing food treats away. Now, in a second, I might say, it might slip. I'm trying to be children friendly, but I will be referring to the PO, if you would. So I'm trying my best not to have it slip out, but if it does, that's my pre-warning. As the food bowl's down, what I'm doing with Bass is I'm throwing food, and because it's soft, fresh food, I will even try to, if you would, pelt it at him. It's soft food, it's not going to hurt. Because if his head is so focused and in the bowl, he may not even be aware that I've got a higher value reward system externally from that food bowl. So sometimes I'll be pelting the food at him. Bear in mind, as I said, it's soft food. It doesn't hurt him. And I'll, try and get it close to his face so at least I can get some of that attention. And then what you'll notice is, particularly in the video and in the majority of experiences that I've had with dogs, is the minute you start to do that, they start to switch on and their eyes come up from the food bowl and they're like, hey, what the hell are you doing? And the minute I've got that second that I've got that eye contact, I'm like, hey, buddy, you want some more food? And I'm just tossing food for them. Again, it's at a higher value. Once I can sit there and start to get that reliable fact that they're going to look at me so much more than that food bowl, that's when I'll start to be a little bit more cheeky and see if I can start to toss the food away from the food bowl. So, of course, if it's something that they covet so much and they want to protect it and guard it, if I can start to get them to see value in actually moving away, then, all of a sudden I've already started to decrease their value of what they're seeing within the bowl. So that's one of the first things that I do. You'll notice in the video as well that I certainly work at a distance. Safety is paramount, particularly when we're working with dogs. In this particular video, I would not have approached or even attempted this type of training if I didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. I'm a massive advocate of my gut instinct when it comes to working with dogs, and touch a lot of wood. So far, it's worked so good. But I certainly have my back toward the wall. One of the things with dogs that are fearful will quite often come around and sneak around from behind and nip from behind. So Bass is a big dog, so I certainly had my back toward the wall. I had staff members and volunteers knowing what I was doing. Obviously, I had a volunteer. Thanks, Virginia, for holding the camera for me. So there was a lot of contingencies that were in place should it have gone pear-shaped, which it didn't, which is always a good thing. Sorry, I just got distracted. Kirsten said that Ian can hear my voice. He recognized my voice. Hi to you guys. So absolutely what we want to be doing is, if we can start to get the dog to move away from the food bowl, then all of a sudden I know that I've got that little bit of an angle to come in. And I'm like, right, all right, buddy. So you're starting to see value in what I have to offer, opposed to this silly bloody bowl that's sitting on the ground. So this is what I call my PO kind of training. And I'm assuming as adults you will know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get him to PO from the food bowl. So it's like, here, have some food. Just don't worry about it. Just pee off. Go away. Go away. And at no point am I ever trying to, in the early stages, give him any evidence that I'm going to approach. I don't want him to sit there and think that, hey, I'm going to take him off or take the food bowl off him. As I said before, you need to get into the evidence locker, if you would, and destroy it. We don't want our dogs collecting any evidence whatsoever. So once I can get him moving away voluntarily from the food bowl, the next thing that you'll start to see that Bass does, and I see this in pretty much all of the dogs that I start to work with, is all of a sudden they start to leave the food bowl because they see me as the source of the higher value food. So they come to me, and then I reward. And of course, in the initial stages, the first thing they do is duck straight back to the bowl. They're like, don't you dare come and touch my bowl just because, I came over. It's like, whatever, buddy. And I throw a few more pieces of food at them, do the PO training, and then they come back. And all of a sudden we start to get this little bit of a rapport. It's like, mate, I don't want your poxy dog food anyway. From there, what you'll start to see with Bass is I start to capture or shape, I should say, an automatic sit. Now, because I didn't know his name prior, and the bond that we built was done in an exceptionally stressful environment. Shelters, do the best that they know how to do, and it is difficult because it's a stressful environment, even if it was the best shelter in the world. Let's face it, guys, dogs only end up in shelters because their original owners, weren't able to look after them to the best of their abilities for whatever reason. So, the fact that, that he was able to sit there and start, walking toward me, and he started thinking, yeah, whatever, I don't care about the food bowls. I started to shape that sit. I wasn't after perfection. This is not obedience training. I was counter conditioning. My number one priority at that time was the food guarding. We always sit there and say, whenever we're working on a certain behavior, that is your priority. You don't want to start bringing in other obedience or patterns or criteria. So I think at this point in the video, I start to bring in multiple bowls as well. One of the things we see a lot of is, of course, when you think about it, when you're trying to protect something or guard something, it's because, it's scarce. There's not a lot of it. So if we can provide multiple sources of it, you don't get that stressed about it. If I can give you an example, a metaphor, when you're a kid, I don't know many kids, we're lucky enough to live in countries, well, I'm assuming, I know that I am, that we're lucky enough to live in a country when we've got water on tap. So, we don't often fight over a glass of water, but, if it was soft drink or something like that, or juice that was in the fridge, you might sit there and have a bit of argy-bargy with your siblings about who's going to get the last sip of soft drink or whatnot. So what I started to do with Bass is spread his food out through multiple bowls. So even if I was to take one, he's still got maybe another 2, 3, or 4 bowls to start to, that he could go to. So he never felt as though if I'm going to push him off one, I say push, if I was going to push him off one, that, there's still another one. Why would you care? What difference does it make? Because it's plentiful, it's always there. And that's a really good point. If anyone is raising young puppies and you have multiple pups, that is something that we certainly recommend. When you're feeding your pups, I see a lot of people, just putting all the food in one big dish. If you have multiple dishes, there's always one stronger pup, bigger, buffier, and they're barging the little ones out of the way. If there's multiple sources of food, then that can alleviate any of potential future issues when it comes to food guarding as well. So I certainly sit there and recommend having multiple food bowls to start off with. Excuse me. Guys, I can see the little comments are going crazy. I will flick through them just now. Bear with me. I know if I stop talking and I look down, I get distracted very quickly. Okay, let's have a look, guys. Xenia, I think it is. Thank you. Watched the video earlier. Amazing to see how quickly you were able to transform his attitude. Thank you. It was such a humbling and beautiful experience. I really did enjoy it. Hi, Preston. Thanks for joining. Hey, Taylor. Primal Instinct. Let me eat in peace. We will. Absolutely. We're going to go through that too. Sharonica, you legend. How are you, my friend? Turkish delights, out of this world. Maybe that's why we'll get along, because they'd be all yours, my friend. You wouldn't need to guard them with me. Kirsten and Ian, I've said hello to you guys. Vu, my dog always stares at me when she's guarding, even when I have a higher value treat. That is a great point. I posted a photo, I think it was last week, in regards to, that kind of, why do you keep your eyes on things, or stare, or eyeball, whatever your description is. And the photo that I posted last week, it's early spring here in Melbourne, and spring in Melbourne brings out huntsmans. So guys, give me a thumbs up if you've had huntsmans in your house so far today, or sorry, so far in the last or all of September. There's certainly been a lot of posts with people saying, spring sucks in regards to huntsmans. For those of you that may not know, huntsmans are fairly big spiders. Maybe the biggest ones would potentially get to the size of your palm here. They're hairy, they've got gnashy teeth, and they're like drop bears. They apparently are harmless, so for any arachno fans, I will sit there and give you that. Apparently they're harmless, but they don't look harmless by any means. Now, the tricky thing is, so you have, if by chance, and there's many Aussies that are not fans of huntsmans, and if you've got a huntsman that's on the wall, let's say you're walking down the hall of your house and there's a huntsman there is not many people that are going to sit there and take their eyes off the huntsman. And the reason being is you watch that sucker, because if those teeth are going to start coming towards you, and in case he eats you, you want to have a heads up. So when it comes to fear, or when it comes to collecting evidence, you're always on watch for it. You're always going to be looking for it. So I would sit there and say that if your dog's always, or your dog is still staring at you, you're still very much early on in the process that your dog doesn't have that trust. And anytime that you approach or go near the bowl or the ball or the toy, that you'll be providing the evidence, which will be counterproductive to the end result, but you're providing the evidence to the dog that, you know, you are going to take it off them. What you want is your dog to sit there, and I will discuss this, I'll go into it a little bit later. What we want is for our dogs to be super happy, you know, that we approach, or that they're happy to give it up to you. I'm going to go through that in a little bit as well. And just scrolling through. What breed is Bass? And does that come into play when counter conditioning? That's a great question. Bass is a purebred crossbreed. No purebred or no breed as per se. I would sit there through his size. For those of you that don't know me, I'm 5'10", so he's a fairly tall dog. Some people might describe him as a bull Arab, which is a collective term for a crossbred dog. I would sit there and say he was a Mastiff cross Dane. And when I say Mastiff, there are many Mastiff breeds. So not sure what breed he was. He was just damn big and an awesome dog to work with. When it comes to counter conditioning, the breed of dog, no, it makes absolutely no difference. The thing that makes the difference is the value system and the belief system that the individual dog has. So hopefully that's answered that question for you. Heidi, hi darling. You're so good at explaining things. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that it's making sense for you. Let's have a look here. Hi Sam, how are you? Mandy, Sharonica. Hi Kat, I'm interested in ideas to help a situation. This is from Mary. I'm interested in ideas to help situations with an older dog growling and guarding on his bed when a new puppy approaches. Mary, that's a great question. It does become difficult to discuss those types of things without actually knowing your dogs. This particular conversation is based pretty much just around when your dog's guarding it from you. When we're talking about dog-to-dog interaction, it does get a little bit tricky because it can depend on so many things. It might be that the puppies, God love them, they're gorgeous, but they can be a little bit obnoxious. You know, depends on the age of your older dog. Are they in their retirement years and they just need a break, give them some space? There's many things that can go into that. I love the question, but it is a difficult one to answer. Any information that or any answer that I give, I could be way off track without knowing the background, the situation, and without watching, without seeing the interaction myself. And Vu says, yeah, thanks heaps. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So I've provided, as I was saying, I provide lots of food bowls for Bass. And still at that point, I'm doing my PO training, so getting him to bugger off from his bowls, leave the bowls. If you come to me and, you know, you volunteer putting his butt on the ground, there'll be what I call the jackpot reward. So a jackpot reward is lots of little pieces. So if I use a pokey machine as an example, I know a lot of dog trainers can use this example. When we talk about a jackpot reward, opposed to if you would giving your dog a 700-gram steak and going, here you go, buddy, I love you heaps. Now, they will certainly know that they're getting well, not 700 grams per se, but they'll know they're getting a big chunk of meat. The difference is when you go to a pokey machine, and if you win, you can hear, like, you get so much stimulus, all positive. You hear, you know, all the silly little chimes going off. And instead of it, you know, just sliding out, let's say you've won $50, instead of it just sliding out $50 going, all of a sudden it goes, ching, 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 you know, worth of $50 worth of 1 cent coins, or sorry, $1 coins. the reason being is because it builds excitement. It makes you feel really, really good. So when Bass starts to leave his food bowls and he comes toward me, he volunteers his butt going on the ground. Now, as I said, that's a loose criteria for me with dogs at that point. My number one goal is that they're happy for me to be in and around their company, in the presence of what it is that they're guarding. So if he chooses to walk away and comes toward me, I'm still going to reward it. But if he volunteers and puts that butt on the ground, holy smokes, Batman, the pokey machine's going to pay out and I'm going to tell him how friggin' awesome he is. So that becomes, this is all part of the counter conditioning. Now, whilst all of this is happening, I think approximately we're probably up to day 3, excuse me. We're probably up to day 3 in the training with Bass. And one of the things that was the ripple effects, the bonus points, if you would, is instead of him growling when I was a couple of kennels down from him when he couldn't even see me, he would hear the one of the gates go, and I think he was approximately 30 kennels down from my entry point. The minute he would hear that little latch shut, 30 kennels down, you could hear, there was no more growling. There was no more carry on. And as I walked down there, he was like so eager. He's at the front of the kennel. His eyes were alive. And if you've ever looked into the eyes of a dog when they're sad and then you see that spark, that is why we're in this industry, guys. When you see the dog just come to life, and for that matter, when you see the owner's eyes come to life as well, that is the most awesome moment ever. Now, three days into this food guarding training that I was, resource guarding training that I was doing with him, he would just sit there and goes, holy shit, here comes Cat, it's so exciting. And he would see it, nothing other than high value for him. So straight away I'm sitting there and going, this is awesome. This is why I do this. And I bust my chops and I bawl my eyes out thinking, why the hell, why do people do this with their dogs and whatever, I was able to find a really humbling place and be able to help him. So all of a sudden, the kennel hands, which are the awesome people that never get enough credit, they're the ones that go into the kennels and, they've got the shitty jobs, pardon the pun, and for those of you that have never worked in a kennel environment, there's some pretty cool people that are volunteering there, The dogs are obviously in there overnight and they go to the bathroom. And normally they go to the bathroom right at the front of the kennel because they sleep at the back. And the front of the kennel is where the volunteers get access. And of course, when the dogs are so happy to see you, what do they walk in? And then they jump on you. So, guys, share some love for all the people that volunteer at shelters throughout the world, because you're all doing your damnedest to help these guys. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So that was some of the side effects, the ripple effects, which were amazing, that we all started to see with Bass. And it was really nice. And to see his tail start to wag, you'll see in the first approach, I wasn't even moving. I couldn't touch. He had his, what we call the wide eye or the whale eye, when they're just like this going, holy smokes, this person's going to kill me. There was a lot of stress shedding. The tail movement was very minimal. He was exceptionally stiff, which is, for me, a bit of an alarm bell, because, that's where he's making the decision as to what his next choice is going to be. And if I'm in a kennel with a dog, particularly of that size, I would quite happily always accept the sociable approach opposed to the antisocial approach. So, guys, that's the counter conditioning part of it coming into play. The next part of the video is the first time that Bass was able to get into the outside yard for a number of reasons. It certainly wasn't through any of our fault. We were doing the best that we could. To put a lead on him was rather difficult. And also, again, it always comes down to stress. A lot of people sit there and may feel that, the fact that we, in a shelter, that the dog doesn't get out to a particular run, immediately, or doesn't have that opportunity every day. It took took a lot of work to be able to even have him feel safe enough for me to walk into his kennel, let alone feed him, let alone stay in the run with him. Then I've got to start to touch him. Then I've got to put a lead on him. Then I've got to take him out of this new place that he has perceived as safe because nothing's happened to him in there. And it was really nice just to see him go, hey, Cat, you're here, let's go, where are we going? So I took him out into the yard, and he was just having a blast. He came in as an entire male, and he was cocking his leg on everything. It was rather stinky, but he was having a blast. And then we brought in a number of bowls. I also started to introduce empty food bowls. So to make sure that he didn't see any value in an empty food bowl. A lot of dogs may see a bowl by itself as an item to guard. So with Bass, that wasn't an issue. You'll see that I start to play with the food bowls with my legs. My eyes are always on him. You can't turn your eyes off a dog, particularly when you're working with these types of behaviors. And he was just doing really, really well. When we're out in the yard, you'll see my body posture start to relax. The other benefit of being out in the yard as well, or I shouldn't say benefit, but one of the other milestones is you'll see that my back's no longer against a wall. He's got the opportunity to walk around me. And I felt quite safe with him at that point. And then you can start to see my hand going into the food bowl. So he started to certainly perceive me as this massive bonus opposed to a threat. So using my analogy of going into the evidence locker, I went in there and I tore it all up and I smashed it all to smithereens. And, as a result, anytime I went near him, went near his food or anything like that, he actually started, as I would approach him, he chose to leave his food bowl and come and see me. Okay, now that's a friggin' awesome thing. That's how I like to raise my pups. For those of you that know Zuka, or Lord Poopytons is his nickname, when he was a pup, what I would do, he would have his food in his bowl. He was on a mixture of the raw diet, so we stock and feed our dogs fuds. So he was on a mixture of a raw diet and with convenience on premium dry food as well. But every time I walked in to approach him or anywhere near him, I would make sure that I had the real goods. So I would come in with a chicken neck or, just raw mince or something along those lines. So anytime now, still to this day, now Zuka's 6, I will walk in, and what he actually does, all by choice, is he will stop eating and walk backwards from his bowl. When I say backwards, because the area that he's fed is quite narrow. So he'll walk backwards from his bowl and be so expectant. And he looks up and goes, "What have you got for me, Mum?" And I'm like, "Oh, I love you, buddy." And I mean, nowadays, normally I just walk in and say, "Hi, buddy, I love you," that kind of thing. Wondering if you finished your meal. But particularly in the beginning circumstances, I was certainly offering. Now, if you've got a young pup, if you've got a young dog, this is the better way to do it. Not the old school way of putting your hand in the food bowl and making sure you can take it off him. We're certainly going to go into detail in regards to that. There've been some great there's been some great discussions and questions that I've seen in regards to taking bones off dogs and that type of thing as well. But I always want my dog to sit there and think, if I'm approaching him, it's not a loss of opportunity, that it is an opportunity. I want to have my dogs feel empowered when I'm around them, that there's always an opportunity for something better, and that builds beautiful respect and an awesome relationship. So that's the mentality that I go with and approach. So if you've got a young pup, if you have a litter of pups at home, my recommendation is to have multiple food bowls. So if your big buff head comes in and elbows the little one out of the way, the little one won't sit there and go, "Oh, holy shit, if I need to guard this, I need to step up and display aggressive behaviors." They'll go, "Whatever, you douche," and they'll make their way over to their own food bowl and eat happily as well. If you're approaching your dog's food bowl, always come in with something else as well, particularly when they're pups. That is the conditioning. Okay, so we condition to start off with, but if these behaviors are already present, that's when we counter condition, because we need to change their opinion. So first and foremost, if we can, set them up for success, that's the way that we want to go. Tea time. What are we all up to tonight, guys? We've got a couple of people that have chosen to hang out with me instead of the footy. Thank you. What else are you guys up to? Where are you all from? You pop it down in the comments down below. I know we've got a couple of people from Queensland here. Kirsten, you're in New South Wales. You're in Sydney. Just going through some of the comments there. All right, guys. So, when it comes to, if by chance you're not dealing with Tammy Peters footy, what footy? Go the All Blacks. Look out, now I'm going to get sledged. If you're having issues with your dog resource guarding and it's not food, let's say perhaps it's a ball or a tug toy or something. Nicole says Geelong. Darwin. Oh, hi Vic. Good to see you, Dal. So what if it's a toy or a ball or a tug toy or something along those lines? Again, your dog's only ever going to guard something if their perception, if their belief is that it's scarce and you're going to take it away from them. So what we want to do is, as I said, get into that evidence locker and just blow the living bejeebers out of it. Adelaide, hi Joanne, thanks for joining us. New Zealand, Choice. Oh, this is awesome, guys. Thank you for sharing where you're from. I'm sitting here with a phone in front of me, so it's nice to have a little bit of interaction. Hi, Joe. How are you, Dal? So, again, if our dogs have got scarcity, or the perception of scarcity, the perception that you're going to take it away, that's their belief system. What we want to be able to do, hi, Diamond, is sit there and go, cool, so you've got a ball, that's fine. There is no reason why you can't sit there and have multiple. I'm watching my P's and Q's here. There's lots of people online here with senses of humor. There is no reason why you can't have multiple of the same toy. So if your dog's sitting there and it's got a ball, you might sit there and go, no, I've got one. Because remember, the toy that you have will have a higher value than the one that they've got, because you're the one that's going to activate it. You're the one that's sitting there and playing with it and going, ha, look at this one, this is awesome. And it's not no as in teasing the way children would tease, their classmates or whatnot. It's about, hey, look what I've got. It's yours if you give the other one up. Hi, Gordon. Thanks for joining us. So having multiple toys for me is a must. Anytime I'm teaching, my dogs, whether it's a game of tug, play, or anything along those lines, you want to have multiple toys so your dog sees the value in giving it to you. Okay, a game of tug, first and foremost, guys, there is actually a blog that went up today on our website. If you check out the blog post, it's about how we start to initiate play and the value of play with our dogs. So check that out by all means. But what we want is, when we're talking about a game of tug of war is only fun if there's two people playing, or there's, two species. Hi, Kylie. Thanks for joining us from Sunbury. So when it comes to a game of tug, you think about it. If you're talking about the old school, I remember we used to go to the local festival, and they had the two local CFA crews, and they'd play this massive game of tug of war. They had this huge rope, and it was super cool. Everyone got into it, but it's only fun when you've got two playing parties that can sit there and play this game. If the other guys didn't stand up, that's just not a fun game at all. I almost said a swear. It's just a really crappy game. So what we want to be able to do is teach our dogs that a game of tug involves you. So you can sit there and play that tug, absolutely. But if they don't win, they lose value in that as well. So look at it, if I use the example of, if you were having an arm wrestle with a 4-year-old. Now, it's just bloody silly. If you sit there and you go, bang, ha ha, look, I won. Like, against a 4-year-old, I'm betting that most of you would win. The thing is, we would sit there, we become animated. Don't forget animation when you're playing with your dogs, guys. They love it. So I know if I'm sitting there and I'm mucking around and, having an arm wrestle, I'll sit there, and there's to and fro. That's the whole part of the game. The game and the fun of it is not so much in who wins, it's in the interaction. So what you want to be doing is, you know, having the two balls, the two tug toys, whatever it is. So when your dog spits one out, they immediately get the second one. Don't allow them to collect that evidence and think, I knew what was going to happen. You took it off me. You know, they're going to think you're stingy. Do not be stingy with your dog. You want your dog to believe and have the perception that you know, that you give every opportunity. You know, you're the master of your dog's universe. So you can certainly build that perception. There's a couple of rules that I implement when playing tug. That's a different conversation. And you certainly want to make sure that it's done correctly. But a game of tug is amazing, and it's so powerful to build the relationship and the level of respect that you have with your dog as well. So guys, obviously there's a huge amount of safety that needs to be considered. If you have a dog that has had a snap at you before, or has rushed at you before when they've been guarding something, don't be silly with it. Don't go, oh, you know, I've watched a live video and I've watched a couple of, you know, celebrity dog trainers, or, you know, I've read something. Don't be silly, because you know what's going to happen. If it goes pear-shaped, your dog will pay the ultimate price. You're going to get hurt, and if it's not you, it'll be someone that you love, and God forbid if it's a child. You know, don't be silly. Get help. Ask for help. Make sure the person that's going to help you has had experience with it before as well. And if the solutions that they offer you are not satisfactory, then, you know, keep asking, guys. You know, when you take on a dog, when you take on any pet, you're the advocate for them. So if you need help, just ask, guys. You're very welcome to shoot us through a message on our Facebook page. If you're needing help with this, by all means, shoot away. Now, I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to cover off. So bear with me as I pull it up and have a sip of tea. I love herbal tea, guys. I've been massively into it this year. It's awesome. Excuse me. All right. So, Loretta, your question. What is the best way to deal with a dog who growls when you go near it when it's eating a bone? Doesn't growl when you're feeding at normal feeding times, just when it's eating a bone. Great question. So, again, if we start to look at reward value, okay? So, food value, I should say. If we look at food value, I always sit there and I start to talk about, if you think about it yourselves, guys, what is your favorite food? A lot of people say chocolate, and my next question to them is normally, is it Cadbury or Lindt? And for anyone that's done work with me, you would have heard that I asked this question before. For me, chocolate, it's not my favorite food. Now, Brent loves that. He thinks that's awesome. I would sit there, and I love Mexican and Thai. I love that. I could eat it all day long. So straight away, you can see that there's a reward value there. You know, I'm not going to guard chocolate. Certainly not going to guard Turkish delight. But when it comes to something like nachos or tacos or Thai food, Xenia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You and I would get along just fine at a dinner party, because there would be no food guarding. We'd be going, oh, here you go, have this. We'd be swapping. So what we want to do, Loretta, is have a look at what it is that your dog sees valuable. So I'm going to jump to a, can you play the phone again, please? I missed the first 6 minutes. What you'll find, Karen, is after this is finished, it will all be posted live, so you can watch it back. Not a worry. So, Loretta, I'm going to jump to an assumption here that your dog is, sorry, I've just had an epiphany. Santa is Andy. Thanks, Brent. I can see you posting away there. Makes sense now. Cheers, Andy. I'm going to assume that your dog, Loretta, is having dry food in its food bowl. And when we sit there and we look at a bone versus dry food, for me, that's a bit like comparing, say, Cadbury's chocolate, which I'll eat, but I'm not that fussed about, versus the bone, which would be my Mexican or Thai. So what you want to do is sit there and go, bone, I'm assuming it's a raw bone, which will have leftover meat. It'll have fat. It's got the marrow. I mean, you are talking creme de la crop of, you know, in regards to that. So you need to start to look at the value there, because if it's a pretty high value bone, you need to make sure you at least match it. You have to at least match it. And ideally, bring your reward system up. Now you can bring it up by having, as I was saying before, jackpots, so jackpot rewards. You can certainly sit there and become a little bit more animated. Just be careful with that one. When I talk about animation, it's more like, hey, good boy, good girl, well done, that type of thing. If your dog volunteers to come away from the bone, Loretta, if your dog is not choosing to come away, please do not approach your dog at this point. I don't think that would be necessarily in the best interest of you or your dog. Just bear with me. I'm having a look at some posts here. Yes, I don't think these can be live viewed on phones. I missed the start too. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks, Gordon. Gordon's just said that perhaps you can't see these on phones. I'm not sure because I'm always... no, actually, I've always seen mine on the phones. Either or. As I was saying, you want the choice to be with your dog. Loretta, you need your dog to come away voluntarily, okay? If your dog's sitting there and kind of flipping you the bird and saying, no, I'm not leaving my bone, then you need to have a look at what it is that you're offering. Perhaps your dog doesn't realize. In the early part of the video, I did mention that when I had the high value food treats, I was actually tossing them at Bass. Again, it is fresh food, so it's not going to hurt him. Be careful if you're using things like dried liver, because as you snap it, it becomes quite sharp. If you're a shit shot and it hits your dog in the eye or something like that, that could turn all pear-shaped. And whilst each dog's different, on a general rule, liver treats aren't as high as something that's fresh for our dogs. So hopefully that makes sense, Loretta. What you want is for your dog to believe that you are of much higher value. Hey Paul, how you doing, buddy? Paul's saying that he can view it on his phone. That's awesome. I'm just going to have a squish through. Sometimes comments come up so quickly I can miss them. Bear with me. Probably time for a new phone. That's what Paul said at the end. Loretta, hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions in regards to the bones, and the guarding and things like that, please don't hesitate to contact us. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. Andy, in disguise. I love how generous you guys are with all the canine knowledge. Really learning a lot from all your classes and the live feed. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I think, one of the reasons why we do what we do is to empower other people and teach them. And, we all start somewhere when it comes to learning and understanding. And I know, my dog handling skills 20 years ago are completely different, thank God, from what they are now. And that's only possible from people sharing their knowledge and their information with me. And, of course, myself and all the other cool people that are in our group understand that that's what it's all about. It's always pursuing what is going to be in the benefit of the dog. That's what it's all about. That's all it's about. If we can help a dog, we're doing the right thing. All right. Dom, how are you, buddy? Are you with us live? Dom is in Sydney. Another cool up and coming in the dog training world. Awesome, guys. His question: from your experience, have you noticed any patterns in dogs that may be predisposed to this behavior, i.e. specific breeds? I know this question goes on, but I'm going to break it down. Specific breeds, no. I have seen and worked with dogs with resource guarding, with oodles. I'm not sure exactly what kind of oodle, but, Groodle, Labradoodle, Cadoodle, Patoodle, Doodles, whatever. All of the oodles, I've seen it in those. I've seen it in beagles. A dog's a dog, guys. A lot of people, and Dom, I know that you know this, a lot of people will sit there and think that their breed is special or unique. If you know me, I'm a Roddy fan. I love my Roddies. And I think they're special. But at the end of the day, a dog is a dog. Whilst they're traits, they may be bred for specific traits. At the end of the day, a dog is a dog. And we all have, dogs the same as us. We have our innate wants and needs, and we just need to look at it like that, opposed to, oh, this is this breed or that breed. I've worked with lots of breeds. Some have no issues with it, and others are just, when I say some, within the same breed, some dogs have massive food guarding issues, and others like, yeah, whatever, come around, eat from the same plate, it's not a problem in the world. So I think that's a really important question, but I think the sooner as a society and a community that we start seeing dogs as individuals opposed to a breed, I think that's really going to bring Australia and for that matter the rest of the world, to the forefront in responsibility when it comes to having pets. As I said before, we're the ones that advocate to them. So, haven't seen any patterns with specific breeds per se. Let's have a look here. Sorry, Dom's question continuing on. Dogs showing other forms of anxiety. Dogs originating from multiple dog households. Mate, they're really interesting, good points to bring up. It's such a unique behavior, and I can sit there and say, yep, if the dog's got anxiety in other areas, then yes, you could see it there. But at the same point, I've dealt with dogs that are living the high life, if you would. They've won doggy tats lotto. They don't have a worry in the world per se, but they still have resource guarding. Again, it comes down to perception. Who knows why they have that belief system? In regards to dogs originating from multiple dog households, sometimes it's an issue, sometimes it's not. Be interesting, guys. The tricky thing when it comes to dog behavior is a lot of the science and the studies, a lot of the studies that are done aren't necessarily, how do you articulate it? They're not necessarily done in a way that I have seen anyway, that you could actually stand up with them. They're very specific, they're very small, and a lot of the times the unfortunate thing is the agenda. To do studies on dogs, breeds, behaviours, etc. It costs money, and the only companies that are willing to put the money up have an agenda of their own, so they're specifically looking for patterns or traits or whatever it is. So hopefully, Dom, that's helped you out. Let's have a look here. What else have I got here? Hey, Kat, wonderful topic. I thought this would be a good question. Miss Tammy. Hey, Dal. Thank you. In terms of a dog that only resource guards bones, how would you tackle the issue being highest value to the dog of bones and nothing else using my particular system? Would you use a variety of bones, size of bones, hoping that the dog has an inherent preference, for example, bigger bones over smaller bones or lamb over chicken, etc.? Again, I think what it is, you need to find what it is that particular dog finds important. What is it that they see the value in? What is their perception? I was doing some work with a blue heeler, and bones were pretty high value, and I think they were just beef bones. I don't know, knuckles or something. I don't know, roughly the size of a fist, if you would. But and that was pretty high value, and previously this family would kind of like give him a bone and not go anywhere near him, and when I say that, they wouldn't even go in the yard. But chicken necks were enough to have him leave that bone and have that, holy shit, this is awesome, why hang out with the bone when I can go over here and get some chicken necks. If it's just if you cannot find any other reward value that is higher than the bone, I potentially would be using another bone. I would sit there and be mindful of your dogs, guys, that they don't get fat or have upset stomachs from the amount of marrow. But what happens if you come out with maybe 5 other bones and just sit there and go, buddy, you can keep that poxy bone. Hey, look, I've got another one, and I've got another one, and I've got another one. And then potentially, again, this is very broad information, guys. Safety is paramount. It doesn't mean necessarily that you have to leave all of those bones with the dog. But yeah, I think that's what I'd be doing. I'd be approaching, if you cannot find anything other than the bones to have your dog perceive that you have good value, and to have your dog go, hey, I freaking love you, then I'd be coming at the dog with more bones. Absolutely. I would not be pelting the bones at the dog, like I said previously, with my soft treats, just tossing them around. The good thing with bones is, when they hit the ground, they're going to make a bit of a thump. So I know the healer that I was working with, we were on like a concrete paved area. So as I started, tossing even the chicken necks, they made enough sound, just enough to get the dog's attention, just that snippet, and you can see the little brain going, and the nose going, holy shit, there's some chicken over there. So hope that helps out, Tammy. You've said excellent. Cool bananas. Sharonica, hello, lovely lady. Let's have a look here. Sharonica says, in your video on with Bass, I offer Bass high value food and place lower value food in his bowl, absolutely, to change his negative perception of it. Correct. So that's as I put it, I'm counter conditioning, so changing his perception and destroying any evidence that he may have previously collected, and I'm making sure that I never supply him with any more evidence moving forward. During this process, have I ever had a dog begin to display pushy or rude behavior towards myself when when the dog starts to realize that the real high value food is given by myself opposed to the food bowl? Okay, so in regards to that, honestly, no, I've never had that. And the reason being is I think I nip that in the bud even before it presents itself. So you'll notice to start off with, Bass won't leave the food bowl, and if he does, he darts back. He's like, don't you dare touch it, like he's a angry little sauce at that point. But then I'm just like, mate, I so don't care, and that's why I call my PO trainer, like, whatever, dude, I'm just here, flick food and get you to bugger off if you would. And then when he starts to realize that I'm the one that has that food, Actually, I think there was one time in that video, I can't watch it back as I'm talking to you guys. There's one time in that video, I think you'll see him come close to me. It must be within the first 3 days. You'll see he comes close to me, and I actually throw the food further away to create distance. So that was a snippet in that circumstance. Sorry, this is actually just coming to me as we're going through it. I haven't really had it where it's become an issue, because I wouldn't allow it to become an issue. But when I feel as though my personal space bubble's being encroached on and I'm not happy with it with the dog, again, I'll just toss the food. They're after the food. That's their priority. So piss off, Oh, I told you it would come out. Sorry, guys. So bugger off you go and get the food elsewhere. And I think also if you can start to capture the dog into that sit, so you can capture them putting their butt on the ground. There's a lot of power in that because you're teaching them manners at the same time. Now, in this situation, I'm teaching an automatic sit. I don't, everyone has their own ways of training and whatnot, but when I'm dealing with this type of behavior, I'd rather have the dog have that default position of when you're approaching a person, just put your butt on the ground. When you put your butt on the ground, there's an opportunity for something better to happen. So hopefully that makes sense with that one, Sharonica. Again, if they're after the food and they start to be a bit obnoxious, remember, safety is first paramount, absolutely. And if you just sit there and toss the food, whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe, but I think teaching a little bit of impulse control at the same time certainly comes in handy. If by chance you find yourself in a situation, if by chance you see a situation starting to develop like this, maybe you need to start, we could explore looking at the value. How do we change the value? Maybe you could sit there and have what I call a trail mix. So you could have a mixture of your high value food. So if you're using chicken or hot dog, cheese or whatever, mixed in with some dry food as well. And if he's being a little turd, maybe just give him some dry food, Again, it's a tricky one, depends on the situation. And I know, Sharonica, that you understand giving advice, because you're an awesome dog trainer. Giving advice over a platform like this can get a little bit tricky only if you don't know the situations. But hopefully that makes sense, my friend. Tammy Tammy has said, hey, Kat, wonderful topic. Thank you, my friend. In terms of a dog that only resource guards... Oh, hang on. I've actually gone through that. Apparently, I loved your question so much, I've typed it in twice. There you go. Guys, I'm just going to have a flick through and make sure I've covered off everything. If you have any questions, now's the time to pop them down below. I've got one more thing that I want to go through with you, because I've seen it did make quite a bit of a, well, when I say quite a bit, there's a little bit of conversation between some awesome dog trainers as well, which was basically, just bear with me, I'm going to bring it up in front of me. It was just in regards to, sorry guys, why do we actually train this? Bear with me. So a little bit of the conversation is, and absolutely resonates with us as well, is, you know, why do you have to train, you know, this kind of acceptance of taking food off your dog? And I think they are the magic words. Just bear with me as I bring it up, because I want to make sure that I cover these off properly. Here we go. All right, let's have a look here. I can see this. Ian, thanks for your talk. Not a dog trainer, as you know, but it's easy to help understand the mindset. Canine fun, absolutely. Hey, buddy. Nice to see you. Thanks, guys. Oh, and I've seen a question from Kirsten as well that's popped up. Bear with me. If I can't find it, I'm just going to do my best from memory. Okay, anyway, so the question was why do we actually bother, you know, training the food guarding and that type of thing? And I think that's such a great question. And I think somewhere along the lines, as a society, we got a little bit lost. This is a personal opinion. I think we just got a little bit lost in thinking that we have to take food off dogs, you know, and, you know, that you have to walk up and take the food bowl off the dog. And, like, if you sit there and you think about it, why do you have to do that? If you were sitting in a restaurant and you're eating a meal, or, you know, you're halfway through your coffee or something like that, and someone just walks up and takes it off you, why would you even bother doing that? So I think there are two ways of looking at it, or one way with two perceptions of it. So as I was saying before, I don't walk in and take Zuka's food off him. What's the point? That's silly. That's his meal. Enjoy it, buddy. You know, I want him to feel that I'm never going to do anything. That being said, should I have to, for whatever reason, if, touch wood, let's be a doomsday prepper for the moment, and, you know, I prepared his meal, I put the food bowl down, and then a glass fell off the bench and it smashed in his bowl and there's glass in it. Okay? I want him to accept the fact that I'm going to take the food bowl off him. But at the same point, as I said, if we're not prepping for doomsday, why bother? You know, it's his meal. He's allowed to enjoy it. So I think that the main thing is, you know, if I give my dog a bone, it's his bone. You know, I'm like, buddy, this is where you can eat it. Chill out, relax, whatever. We separate our dogs, you know, when they're eating, when they've got bones, for the sole reason of, I don't want them to feel stressed. I don't want them to feel like there's competition. You look at a lot of the dogs that sit there and they scoff their food. So much so when they cough it up, there's like solid pieces of food that are coming out, like their digestive system is already under pressure. Why put them under that level of stress? Zuka is a really slow eater because he's never had to compete. When I say really slow, like it might take him 3 to 4 minutes to finish his food bowl. Now, our old rescue dog, Otto, like he would inhale that food. Like he was a mad bugger. And, you know, there was sweet bugger all we could do. He was an extreme case, and, you know, we owe a lot of our skill set due to him. But why? You know, why do you need to take the food off your dog on a repetitive basis? I sit there and say, you know, play it safe, guys. If you've got young kids, and look, there's certainly valid reasons as to why, you know, you don't want your dogs to be startled when they're eating, because, you know, if they just get, you know, if you walk past and just brush them or something like that, you know, you just touch them as you walk past, you know, the last thing you want is for them to sit there and turn around and have a snap. But, you know, God bless our kids, they're awesome little tackers, but, you know, they're not necessarily the cleverest little cookies when it comes to dogs, and dogs are a living animal as well, and they deserve that you know, the right to be able to eat in peace and quiet as well. And why would you ever risk your kids, guys? Why would you risk it? Why would you risk your dog? Because you know what's going to happen if it goes pear-shaped. I kind of sit there and say, just separate them. How hard is it to shut a door? To me, it's really not that hard. That's my approach with it. I do like, you know, having my dogs feel. That to me is important. How do my dog feel when I'm around their food bowl? I don't want them to feel threatened. I don't want them to feel that when someone walks past or anything like that, that I'm ever going to take their food bowl or somebody else is ever going to do that. And as I said, if we're doomsday prepping and for whatever reason I need to take it off, I've done the hard yards. When I say hard yards, it's not that hard, but I've done the prerequisite. I've done that training where he sits there and he goes, hey, mum's coming. Cool, she's taking the bowl. Why? Because I'm going to give him something better. So I think there's certainly a lot of validation in that. You don't have to, you know, take it off your dog. That's such nonsense, guys. And that's the very PG rated way of describing it. I've even heard people spitting in their food bowl. In a dog's food bowl in order to show them who's dominant. Guys, that is crazy cracker stuff. Crazy. That is as lunatic as sitting there and saying, hey, if you spit on your teenager's food, that they're not going to be bratty anymore. It's just, it's nonsense. So instead of coming at it from that kind of yeehaw, I am the alpha kind of mentality, you know, what is your dog's experience? There's been some wonderful science coming out, particularly now. And I think most people, you know, have always known it, or at least felt it, that our dogs have feelings. They experience love and all of that type of thing. So if you look at it from your dog's perception, that is your answer. You're being given the answer right there and then. If a dog thinks you're going to take it off them, don't provide that evidence for them. Hopefully that makes sense. I couldn't actually find that thread, but I know there was a few people that had mentioned it. Just bear with me. Adrian, I did see that you're on there. Hopefully that's helped out with that. Kirsten, what level of resource guarding do you think is normal and what should be expected? Oh, that is a very interesting question. And I think it depends on the dog. This conversation is based around pet dogs. So when it comes to resource guarding, personally with my dogs, I don't want them to resource guard. I want my dog, you know, when I'm working with Zuka, I want him to see me, and I mean it as no disrespect to anyone. I want Zuka to see me as though I'm the god. You know, that I have everything for him. I provide all resources, the food, the ball, the play, the pats, the cuddles, you know. So I don't want him to ever feel, ever, that I'm going to take something away from him. So when it comes to that, I sit there and say, when it comes to resource guarding, I don't really want him to resource guard. But as I was just saying, I don't have a point to prove with him either. I'm not going, right, you know, I can take this off you and I will take it off you. And, you know, that's all just nonsense. I want him to sit there and I want him to show. I've got this great story. When Zuka was 5 months, he was a ring bearer in a friend's wedding. I will post a photo. I don't know if I can do it directly under this once it goes live, but I'll certainly post a photo for you guys. He was a ring bearer in a friend's wedding, which means by default I was actually in the wedding as well. 5-month-old puppy. In the wedding I was wearing satin shoes. For anyone that doesn't understand what satin is, the minute it gets wet it stains, and if you just put a needle through it, it's a mark. So you imagine 5-month-old puppy teeth. Doesn't go down so well. So he, my fault, because I had a 5-month-old puppy and I wasn't supervising him at the time, walked into the bedroom, found the shoebox and got straight into the shoes. The difference was he picked up the shoe, he walked out into the lounge room and he's like, hey mum, I got your shoes. I'm like, hey, you little, trying to, you know, remain happy. But, and I'll justify that in a second. And the reason being is, what I wanted to condition with Zuka is any time that you have something, come and show me. Absolutely, come and show me, buddy, because you're not going to be in trouble for showing me. What will happen is I might take it off you, right, as a swap. So I might sit there and give you a measly piece of, you know, dry kibble and take it off you, and there's no game, there's no fun, and you've lost your opportunity and there's nothing. But if Actually, I'll finish this part. So he brought the shoe out and he's like, hey, Mum, look, I've got your shoes. And I'm like, holy shit, don't do that. So I've swapped the shoe for whether it was a toy at the time or a piece of food. I can't quite recall. But I was so happy that he sat there, and because I'd conditioned him, anytime you have something, come and show me what you've got. I don't want him to have that mentality of, I'm going to hide and destroy shit because Mum's not looking. If he can sit there and goes, hey, I've got something, Mum's an opportunity. So he's brought it out, saved the shoes, as you'll see them in the photo. The difference is that that's the mentality that I want. Now, a lot of people sit there and say, but aren't you just rewarding your dog for bringing things out for you? Oh, sorry, aren't you just rewarding your dog for chewing stuff, for grabbing stuff? And I think the difference is, when he brought the shoe out, I swapped it. Thanks, buddy, cheers. But that was it. He didn't get the bonus of a game of tug of war or a wrestle or pats or cuddles. It was just like, and it was like a bank transaction, you know, not that exciting. So just through that, he slowly started to learn. And when I say slowly, Zuko, I was very blessed with him. He's a pretty good pup. He would just go, well, why the hell would I get the shoes? Like, that's boring. I'm going to get a tug toy, you know. Zuko really likes soft toys because he gets such a profound response. If you see a 50-kilo Rottweiler walking around with an Elmo in his mouth, you know, or Big Bird, people laugh. So, of course, he finds that rewarding. So why would he ever get a you know, pair of my shoes when he gets nothing for it? We've had people where Zuko would stick his head out of the window at traffic lights, and he's got this massive big Elmo, you know, Cookie Monster type toy, and people, like in the cars next to us, just stop and laugh and point at him. He's like, yeah, check me out. So hopefully that makes sense in regards to the way that I like to condition my dogs. If you've got something, bring it straight over to me. Show me what it is. There was a circumstance, and if I didn't have witnesses, it would be hard to talk about because I'm sure you'd all just call it BS. I think it was about 12 weeks. Paul, if you're on here, I'm sure you can confirm for me. I'm pretty sure it was about 12 weeks. We were at a group, or should I say like an outdoor area, a park, and he was you know, maybe 20 meters away, and he picked up some grub had left some, you know, KFC bones or whatever on the ground, and the first thing he did is he picked it up, and these are like little wings, like it could have been down the hatch in no time. He's walked over, he's, you know, like, hey Mum, look what I've got. I've told him to out or give, if you would, and he's just spat it out, and the thing landed literally about 1 to 2 foot in front of me, and away from him, I should say. And I was just like, holy smokes, my man, you're awesome. So I'm paying out, I'm giving him the food. That's that jackpot reward that we're talking about, because, you know, he just gave me a chicken bone. Like, not that I particularly wanted it, but I certainly didn't want him to eat it. So hopefully that makes sense in regards to that one, Kirsten. Robbo's asking what my surname is, so you can cheer me up because, oh, you're having a hard time, buddy. That's not cool. Guys, you will find my professional link down below. I will pop that there for you. Andy, who's confusing me with your alias. Great point with the coffee. That'll make anyone pretty cuckoo too. Exactly. Carly, my girl, is fine with food, but not with her ball with other dogs. Tip for stopping. Carly, great question. What I was saying earlier before is this, I designed this kind of first episode mainly around dogs that are food guarding against, or resource guarding, I should say, against people. And the reason being, it depends on a lot of factors when it comes to dog. Not only will it depend on Rain, your dog, but also the other dogs that are going on, you know, whether it's in the same house, whether it's out in public, in a dog park and things like that. It's very hard to give advice that would actually you know, be of help, because if I gave the wrong piece of advice with all of the best of intentions, it could certainly go pear-shaped, because behaviour can vary in an absolute instant. So again, it makes it really tricky without actually seeing it, but you're very welcome to, you know, shoot us a message and let us know, and you know, we'll see where we can go from there. I'm just going to have one last little look, guys, and see if there's any other questions. Guys, I think that is about all. So I'll give it a second or two in case anyone wants to post anything just below. The next episode of K9TV, it's going to be on dating and dogs. This is my favourite topic. So dating and dogs, sorry, it's not necessarily for singles per se. It's about, you know, building the relationship with your dog, having your dog have that engagement. We hear a lot of people saying, oh, my dog just ignores me, you know, runs off, pays no attention. So the next episode is going to be on dating and dogs. For those of you that don't know, I'm currently putting pen to paper and be writing a book. At this point, I'm hoping it's going to be published next year. So very excited about that one. It's as I said, you know, it's a real passion of mine, understanding where your dogs are coming from, and we can learn so much about our communication skills and what we offer other people as well through it. So that will be the next episode. Nicole, you've just put one up. Carly, you're going to message. Beautiful. Nicole says here, my puppy has run My puppy has run down and hid down pat. I marked that up somewhere. Possible. I leapt on him when he stole a chocolate slice. Oh, bugger. Is that the same as counter conditioning to break the habit? Just bear with me. I'm a little bit lost. My puppy has a run. Oh, so he's got a run. And I'm not too sure, Nicole, what that first bit means. My apologies. He has the run and hide down pat. Oh, sorry. When I say it out loud, it makes perfect sense. So he gets it, runs, buggers off. Cool. Absolutely. One of my favourite saying, guys, is when you know better, you do better. So, you know, you mucked it up. Oh, well, that's okay. Now we move forward. So, counter conditioning, absolutely. You know, what we want to do instead of him sitting there and going, I've got it now, I need to bolt, because he thinks that you're going to chase him. Now, there could be a number of factors with that. The chase is fun for a dog. I always recommend people do not chase your dog, because if they ever get off your property, they're going to, yeehaw, sucker, you can chase me, and they're going to run, and you'll be damned if you can catch them. What you want to do is teach your dogs to chase you instead. That's a different episode in itself. So, in regards to the run and hide, it's a little bit tricky. Potentially what you'd want to do, there's a particular item that he likes to steal, preferably not chocolate cake or chocolate slice. But let's say, for example, I've worked with people where the dogs love to steal socks. Set it up. I mean, socks, provided you're supervising and they're not going to eat it, are not going to be, you know, overly toxic or an immediate hazard to your dog. So if by chance, you know, if it was a sock, you can leave a sock laying around, supervise watching it, because I know a lot of dogs that like to eat them and then they end up with bowel obstructions. So what I would be doing there is setting that situation up, making sure you're prepared and you're set up as well, not just putting a sock on the ground and going, holy smokes, now what do I do? Have high value. You know, most dogs would choose food over a sock. So when he steals the sock, just sit there and go, dude, I don't care. It's a stinky sock. I don't want to wash it anyway. And then start throwing that food. So that's what I call my PO training again. It's like, whatever, take it. I don't care. And all of a sudden, if he brings the sock up towards you, now this is the key as well. Don't try and touch it. Because the minute you go to touch it, you are providing that evidence that you're going to take it off him. You want him to spit it out. So I'll use these pens as an example. In case you can't tell, I have a particular favour for one colour. So now I've got the sock and I'm really happy. So I'm guarding it. What you want to sit there and do is offer. Okay, so if you sit there and you're offering this and I'm not letting it go, you can tell straight away the value is not good enough. But what happens if you start to offer? I like colour. If you start to offer more, I might sit there and go, oh shit, actually this pen doesn't work. In this case, this sock doesn't taste too good, and I like the food that you're offering. You don't want to touch it, because the minute you touch this one, your dog's going to sit there and go, I bloody knew you were going to do that. What you want is this. That type of mentality. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a little bit tricky to demonstrate in front of a camera in an office. But absolutely try and, if you can, set it up in a safe environment. If he does run and hide, I wouldn't necessarily be chasing him. Let's say, for example, he runs down into a spare room or maybe out into the backyard. You could just, you know, cruise out, follow him with food, that type of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, without specifically seeing it, it makes it difficult. But the reason he runs and hides is because he absolutely knows, because remember, that's perception and belief, he absolutely knows that you're going to take it off him. So make sure you get into that evidence locker, you destroy all of the evidence that may have been, provided to him in the past, and give him, an alternative solution. All right. Gordon, good stuff, guys. Good to see you embracing the Facebook Live technology. Cheers, buddy. Thank you so much. Everything is great until the cat poos. Straight under the lounge. Hannah, does that mean your dog is into the cat poo? If you could let me know. Joanne, very well demonstrated. Penny dropped. Awesome. I'm so glad that makes sense for you. So I'm assuming you're referring about with my kind of pen example that I was giving. Do not touch it. Don't provide any evidence. The second you do that, you're going to, go right back and provide more evidence, which just means more evidence that you have to destroy. Hannah, Muchley, cat poo. It's not nice. And the tricky thing is, with the cat poo is, that's pretty high value for a dog. And it's very easily consumed. It's not like a lot of the times the minute that it's almost in the dog's mouth, they're swallowing it almost at the same time. My first concern when dogs are getting into cat poo is if it's coming from a litter tray. Be mindful of what litter that you're using. Bear with me, guys. Sorry, I can hear my voice is going. Sorry. Be mindful of the kitty litter that you use. A lot of the chemicals that are used in a lot of modern day kitty litters, whilst I'm not a vet, common sense would sit there and tell you that they're going to be toxic. They're designed to absorb moisture and liquid and that type of thing, and smells and God knows what else. I'm definitely a dog person, not a cat person, but you want to make sure that the kitty litter is safe. I believe you can get recycled paper ones, but that's my first thing that I would be looking at. What kind of kitty litter have you got? I would be honestly looking at putting the kitty litter in a place that your dog doesn't have access to. It does make it rather difficult, and particularly if it's a kitty litter type of scenario. If your dog has access to where the kitty litter is during the day whilst you're at work or uni or whatnot, then it's going to be a self-rewarded behaviour, and it's a highly rewarded behaviour. It's like that never-ending packet of Tim Tams, in the minute you're not there, then straight away your dog's going to get into it. And I don't know why, but apparently it tastes delicious. Just ask any dog. So personally, I would be looking at putting it in a place that your dog doesn't have access to it. Again, even if it's in the yard, it's damn hard to be able to sit there and work it, because you can't control where the cats are going to, defecate in your backyard. They bury it so you can't even see it anyway, and it's not going to be until your dog actually brings it in and says, "Hey, Mum, look what I've got, nom, nom, nom," and then tries to give you a kiss on the face, which is really feral. Gotta love dogs. Let's have a look here. Very informative session. Thank you, Joanna. Kylie uses a litter tray with a lid and place it in the corner with only a small gap for the cat to get in. Scoop it out often. And cat nuggets are gross. Absolutely. Nicole, great, thank you. Heidi, ooh, don't talk about Tim Tams and cat poo in the same sentence. See, now that could be a counter-conditioning argument there. Could I counter-condition Heidi to never eat Tim Tams again if I talk about cat poo? Sarah, how are you, my friend? Thanks for the session. Motivates me to go and feed my dogs and have a training session. Absolutely, guys. Hopefully you have found this informative. It's been great hanging out with you guys. Thank you for contributing. I love seeing the love hearts and the thumbs up, and seeing all your comments come up. It's pretty freaking cool, and I like the fact that there's some awesome dog people out in the world. So whatever you're doing, do it well, and I'll see you next. Heidi's going, maybe. Whatever you're doing, do it well, and I will see you for episode 2 when we're talking about dating and dogs and building engagement. Mwah! Stay safe, guys. Bye-bye.